Newmark Learning presents Jump into Genre. Follow along as I read. Turn the page when you hear this sound. Now, let's start reading. Jump into Genre. The Ugly Duckling. A fairy tale. Retold by Laura Leighton Strom. Illustrated by James Palmer. About the genre. Fairy tales. A fairy tale is a story about long ago that often has a lesson. It usually has characters that are good and some that are evil or mean. The way a problem is solved lets the storyteller teach the lesson. About the original author. Hans Christian Andersen. Hans Christian Andersen was a Danish writer who lived from 1805 to 1875. He wrote more than 100 stories, many of them fairy tales. The Ugly Duckling is one of his best-known tales. The story teaches a message of how hurtful our words can be, and how we are all special to someone. The Ugly Duckling, a fairy tale. Retold by Laura Leighton Strom. Illustrated by James Palmer. Once upon a time, down on an old farm, lived a family of ducks. Mother Duck had been sitting on a clutch of 5 new eggs for quite some time. One morning, 4 of the eggs hatched. Out popped 4 chirping ducklings. They were yellow and fuzzy and as cute as can be. But there still was one egg left in the nest, and it didn't look like the others. Mother Duck and Father Duck and all of the baby ducks stared at the big gray egg. Why wasn't it hatching? As they all got closer, they heard little pecking sounds from within the egg. Click, click, click. Soon, a gray beak poked through the shell. Then, out came a gray wing. Eventually, the gray duckling was out of his egg.
"You're ugly,"
said one of the ducklings. All of the ducklings grew quickly, and the yellow ones stayed yellow, and the gray one stayed gray. The gray duckling ate a lot more than the yellow ones. He grew much bigger and was chubbier than his brothers. At night, Mother Duck would shake her head at Father Duck. "I can't understand how this ugly duckling can be one of ours," she said, shaking her head. The gray duckling knew he was not like the others. As the days went by, the gray duckling became more and more unhappy. His brothers didn't want to be seen with him, so they didn't include him in farmyard play. All the other farmyard animals laughed at him, too. The ugly duckling was sad and lonely. Mother Duck did her best to console the big gray duckling. "Poor little ugly duckling," she would say. "Why are you so different from all of the others?" This made the gray duckling feel even worse. One day at sunrise, the ugly duckling ran away from home. As he walked through the forest, he stopped to talk to other birds.
"Do you know any ducklings that look like me?"
he asked. But all of the birds turned up their noses at him. The gray duckling was very hungry, and so he crept into a countrywoman's cottage. She caught him snooping around and demanded that the gray duckling lay eggs for her. She was very upset when she found out he couldn't lay eggs, so she decided he should be her dinner. Fortunately, the gray duckling escaped, but he ended up alone again. Winter came, and the water in the riverbed froze. The lonely duckling looked for food in the snow. A kindly farmer saw the ugly duckling freezing on the ground. He picked up the duckling and took him home. "This little thing is frozen," he said. "I'll take him home for my children to look after." The duckling spent a pleasant winter with the kind farmer. By springtime, the gray duckling was full grown, so the farmer took him to the river to set him free. That was when the duckling saw his reflection in the water. He saw a beautiful bird with a long, long neck.
Who is that? He asked himself. What a handsome bird!
A flight of swans glided onto the river. He looked at his reflection again. He suddenly realized he was one of their kind. He was a swan, just like them. The swans became friends with the ugly duckling, who was no longer ugly or a duckling. He had found his true family, and he lived happily ever after.